So you're looking at, this is really like a sports bar type atmosphere in a tailgate scenario. So there's like a stage in the background. This is a 40-foot by 40-foot bar with TVs on the inside, all kinds of fun stuff to do, like beer pong and a couple live acts and some other fun things. So this setup's happening right now, right behind us.
Very cool, very cool. Just because they're going to ask, what's the dimension of that truss?
Currently, the outside is 40 by 40. There's not much weight on it, just to be clear about how that's up. It's all ground supported. Rigging in this room can be a bit challenging and expensive, so we try to ground support whatever we can do in the room. The interior is 20 by 20, so you're looking at 42 on the outside with the corner blocks, and on the inside about 22 by 22.
Yeah, that's going to be really impressive. We'll be watching for some pictures. If you can post those up on Facebook, that'd be pretty awesome.
Sounds good. We can do our best.
So let's get into it tonight. Matt's going to be speaking at Mobile Beat Las Vegas. If you guys have not, if you've been hiding under a rock, that's coming up here in March. The link to the full schedule is down in the description below. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, it's right there. The chat we're going to be looking at tonight and following is on YouTube. So if you're watching this on Facebook, go down into the description, click on Matt Radicelli's show. That's the first one tonight coming out on YouTube, and then we can follow along. We've got a good crew of folks with us tonight. And yeah, let's talk about that presentation you're going to be doing at Mobile Beat.
Sounds good. Well, what do you want to know?
Well, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing at Mobile Beat this year.
Well, I'm going to try and follow up last year's presentation by getting into a topic that's a bit more serious and I think important for a lot of business owners, and that's how to keep track, how to measure what's happening in the business. And that goes for everything. It's not just about how much money we're making, but it's about how much money we're not making. It's about what's our conversion rate for leads, how good are we at measuring our business efficiencies. And I even dip into, and we could talk about it tonight if you want, how to measure what's happening in your personal life. Are you well balanced enough to be able to know that if you're okay and you're centered or you're taking care of yourself, that you can also do that for your team. So it's really about all of that, measuring, testing, gauging, benchmarking. And then there's a little bit of financial statement 101. Okay, if things like a profit and loss sheet, a statement of cash flows, or a balance sheet scare you, and you kind of run the other way whenever one's put in front of you, or you pretend, which happens all the time, pretend like you know what it says and go, oh, okay, and what do you think about, if you don't really know what it's telling you about your business, I can give a little 101 or 201 refresher in the beginning of the seminar and then kind of go from there.
Sure. So what brought you to presenting this topic? Now, for those of us who have studied a lot of business aspects of it, we know the importance, but a lot of DJs, came into this because we love music. And then all of a sudden we find this nasty business side of it we have to deal with. So what brought you to wanting to talk about this or sharing this idea?
Well, doing business in general regarding the business side of it, it really just comes down to, are you a DJ owner that happens to own a business, or a business owner that happens to own a DJ company? And, you've probably heard that a million times from people using that analogy. But for me, it's really a true thing. I'm actually a business owner that happens to be specialized in entertainment. Okay. Last year was all about management, how to grow and lead a rock star team and retain people. Not that this isn't as important in a different way, but this year it's a little bit more serious. It's about trying to talk about something that I haven't seen talked about. I believe that all the content at Mobile Beat, you're going to see all of our fun staff members walking around here. All the content at Mobile Beat, Ryan and the crew, they do a very good job of making sure that there's a lot of entertainment. There's lots of marketing. There's lots of trend things going on. I hadn't seen a lot of content centered around how to make sure that we're good business owners from a financial and metrics perspective, how to build dashboards. So I just thought that there was an opening there, and when they asked if I would come back on board, I asked them if they'd be okay with me taking a left turn this year a little bit and doing something that might not be as sexy, or as motivating, but is just as important in my opinion.
So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, why do I need that? What would be your answer?
Well, in any business, you kind of need to know where you're at. You need to know, take your temperature, litmus test, whatever it's going to be. You need to know if you're making money. We all start, and I use this analogy, we all start and it's easy. We go out, we make a whole pile of money, we have this instant gratification, and we realize as good performers very early in our careers that it's easy to sort of pay off some equipment quickly and then have some cash in our pockets. And then soon that turns into this multi-op thing, and all of a sudden you have less money at the end than you anticipated. And bit by bit, it just gets more and more challenging to understand it as it expands. And I just think that the bigger that you grow, or the more refined that you get with your business, you need to be laser focused on what it is that you're trying to accomplish for your total, profit margins, gross profit margins, whatever it is for you. And I don't know what that is for you. Okay. For me, it's different than the next guy, How can you measure it if you don't know what it is? How can you measure it until you put a finish line in front of it? How can you improve it if you don't measure it?
Sure.
So why? Why is because we need to. We need to know which direction we're headed in. Are we going forwards or backwards?
What are some of the common, you mentioned measuring, of course, that's a big part of this. What are some of the common areas that are measured, and maybe a couple of them that DJs aren't really thinking about that are really good indicators they need to be paying attention to?
Some of the most common ones are the ones that, all of our softwares, including QuickBooks, or Peachtree, or, whatever it might be, they tend to manage, which is like average dollar sale. How much are we making in revenues, monthly, weekly, annually, whatever that might be. As a DJ company owner, I don't know, average dollar sales seems to be the most fun. I hear that one asked a lot in some of the business coaching that I do. How do I get that average dollar sale up, or how do I charge more? And what that means is, how do I get more per gig, right? Mm-hmm. How much am I going to get? So let's break down the average dollar sale or each sale itself. You've got how many leads come in. You've got this giant pile of leads, and then you book some meetings, and then out of those meetings, you book some shows. And in that, there's this thing called your conversion rate. How many of those leads that came in did you actually turn into a sale? Okay, that's your conversion rate. Now, we measure that not only as a team, but as individuals. So if you've got one extra salesperson, or maybe you hired an admin or an office manager and they happen to be closing occasionally for you, if you can do that, it's important to know that their closure rate matches yours. Otherwise, why are you passing leads off to them? Or can we train them? Can we get them to do a better job? Can we make sure that part of the business, maybe they're better than you, right? What if their conversion rate's higher than yours? Get out of the way.
Yes.
Right? Get out of the way. Delegate, get it done. After that, when you get down and then you get better after the conversion rate, then it's time to start talking about getting our average dollar sale to go higher. Because what if we could increase both, right? More shows and more money, not necessarily more shows but less money, or however you want to look at it, go both ways. All right, then there's also the multiplier. What if you could measure how many shows you're doing for a specific customer? If you're a wedding company only, okay, this is less important to you, but if you do corporate, if you do schools, if you do bar and bat mitzvahs, meaning multifamily events or lifetime events, making sure that you know whether you're getting an average in your customers of doing 1.5 events per customer, or 1.6, or getting that number to go up, it turns into real money when it comes down to growing the business. So those are some of the typical ones. Some of the non-typical ones, and again, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm. Oh, certainly.
What's going to be in the seminar. The non-typical ones are how it is to grow your business and maybe see whether you're on the right path, right? A lot of businesses, they grow in a linear sense, and some of them grow in a stepping stone mentality. The difference is your investment in what I've heard called forward backward planning. Are you investing this year in the things that you need to be successful for next year? And if the answer is no, you might find yourself behind the eight ball next year. If you're saying yes, you're likely going to find that you maybe don't have as much cash as you'd like to. And there's no magic answer. The point is that if you have the foresight to invest in the growth that you're going to have in your business, you can continue to grow. That means that you're slow and steady wins the race. So with that said, if you have a DJ business that, let's say, is, I don't know, a $400,000 business, and you have 2 full-time employees or 3 full-time employees, if you take the amount of revenue you have and just divide it by the number of full-timers. Now, I'm not talking about your entertainers. That's a separate thing. But the full-timers, you get a revenue per full-time employee metric. Mm-hmm. And I found that there is a very specific range depending on whether you're a multi-op in the Midwest versus, East Coast, West Coast, or if you are a boutique firm, that there's a very specific range for different business types. And if you're in that range, you're probably doing pretty well. If you're outside that range, it means we need to look at it and find out why.
You mentioned something, and I want to take you back because you mentioned a really cool thing, and I wanted to have you touch on that again. You talked about investing today basically for tomorrow, and I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
What are some areas? Because I know the tendency with a lot of DJs is that our investing for tomorrow is buying a new light that we can take out to our party next week, and then that's what we do.
Yeah.
There's things we can invest in that are going to give us return next year and the year after, and be more profitable, I guess, than some other things. Are there some things that really stand out that maybe we're not thinking of?
Well, right off the bat, if you're going to try and get some advice, from somebody who's evolved as a DJ company or into doing production, like which is what has happened with Rock the House and the Rock House family companies. There's a difference between buying something because you know that you're going to turn a multiple on it and rent it a certain number of times in the next 2 years, and buying it because it's part of your infrastructure. One of them is part of the capital improvement budget. The other is just part of the cost of doing business. a very simple example would be something like truss. Okay. The shelf life of truss or grip and structure, like the L16 stands that were used to put that together, or safety cables, things of that nature. Those are part of the cost of doing business and infrastructure. Even though the truss can go out, the shelf life of that unit is much, much longer than that of, let's say, a point source speaker, or a moving head LED or 440, which is what's on that truss behind us. So when I'm looking at, if I'm going to buy a compact line array or some lights that are there, I'm really going to look at it over 2 or 3 years and say, okay, how much am I getting per show for this? It's an investment. But I look backwards on my rentals based on the events that I did last year and how much I had to cross rent additional equipment. I look at how much, if I had invested in some of that equipment and used cash, whether it's borrowed or from myself. I have to tell you, we borrow money, and I'm happy to explain how it is that we borrow and why. But if I had my way and I could do it all over again, I'd never borrow ever. Like any of us, I'd much rather borrow from myself,
right,
than do any sort of notes and terms and leases and stuff. Some of it's creative. So there's a reason for some of it, but there's a difference. So forward backward planning is like, okay, well, next year, what if I used a 20K projector 32 times, and my tipping point in order to need to own it the previous year was 24 times, but I didn't have the foresight to know that I was going to have a couple of these other large jobs that I needed a giant projector for. Well, that's when you pony up and buckle down, right? And invest the 60 or 70 or 80 grand that you need in the large pieces of gear that you need, because you're going to spend it anyway. So it goes from being a cost of goods sold or a cog, okay, to being more of a fixed expense item in capital improvements. And that's, it's very different. And it's not easy to tell the difference when you're in it. It's not. And we're not talking about just simple conversions for sound systems. That's pretty easy. It's easy to say, hey, I'm going to add a fifth DJ system, so I need to spend $12,000 to $18,000 on this turnkey kit, for what's happening. You know what I mean? That's different.
Yeah, very, definitely. But yeah, when you mentioned it's difficult to especially when you're involved with it, to differentiate. I could definitely see that for sure, Blake.
Yeah, but it doesn't always hit you between the eyes, though. You really do have to sort of analyze it. You do have to know what COGS are and understand it. COGS are costs of goods sold. COGS only happen when you do a job. We go over this very briefly in the seminar, because it's something you need to understand the rest of the syntax of the seminar. But, John, somebody goes out to do an event. They're paying their DJ. They're paying for the gas in the truck. Maybe they're paying for a truck rental. All those things, those are COGS.
Yes.
Those expenses don't happen unless the job itself happens. And the rental of gear that we don't own, that's a COG. Well, if you know that your gross margin could have shifted by 2 or 3% over the whole year if you bought some projectors, it turns into a pile of money.
Yeah.
At the end, over years, not the first time around. Sometimes in the first year, that would be great.
Yeah, we'd all love that, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, we sold and yay, awesome. Let's kind of jump to the personal side of it. That was kind of intriguing. That that the balance and things you talked about. Let's dig into that a little bit for me.
Well, I was dashboard crazy a couple of years ago, and I had this crazy idea after I started doing alignment meetings with my team and I started business coaching, that I wanted to gauge the things in my life that are important to me. I have 4 kids. Okay. I have a 11, 10, 6 or 7 now, 11, 10, 7 and 5-year-old, 3 girls and a boy. And it's important to me, even though I work hard, it's Monday night. I'm here with you. It's 8 PM, you're still loading in. It's important to me to be home 3 nights a week and try and have dinner with those kids, and tuck them in 3 nights a week if possible. I don't do as many shows on Saturdays as I used to. I think last year I did 27 shows total, including me project managing. But if I can say, and I look at a chart, that I was actually home 4 nights a week and tucked them in 3 nights a week, it makes me feel better about myself. And even if I was home 3 or 4 nights a week, if I look back on it after a hard week, I might feel like I failed them, but the numbers would make me feel better about myself. Also, there's, hey, are you watching what you're eating? So, caloric intake. I happen to really enjoy tequila with my buddies, whenever we're out having a good time. Cheers. But it doesn't mean that it's good for you to do it every day. So if I would say on a monthly basis, if I could count how many times I went out for drinks with my friends, and it's below whatever I say that threshold is, then there you go. How many hours of sleep did I get? Did I shave today? I can go 2 days without shaving and still look decent, but it doesn't mean that I look as good to a corporate customer as if I do shave every day. So these are the kind of random things that I say, hey, if I feel good about myself, whether it's the way that I look, how I feel inside, the better I can do for my family and for our team members.
It's interesting and good information and such because that balance of family, everyone that here knows that I have a large family, and that's something that we struggle with also, because they're home from school, I'm getting prepped for shows and trying to have that time. And you really get to the point where you become defensive with those hours that you want to spend with family and such. So that's cool that hearing that and such. Balancing the relationship with staff, with your team. How do you work that? Because it's as someone who has worked with the multi-system over the years, with employees and staff, there's the line of when I'm the employer or manager and they're the staff, and then there's friendships are involved with this and all these different little nuances. How do you handle the relationships that way and keep a good balance?
I've had to go both ways. We're 17, almost 18 years into this thing called Rock the House. And, I have members of our team that I'm best friends with. I also have members of the team that have very, very clear-cut lines of professionalism. Even though we're friendly, we're not, I would say, quote unquote friends. Yep. And I'm resolved to accept that. I've had a couple people over the years, especially during the times of their evaluations, which I do a lot of the executive evaluations, but we've got a talent director and some other team members that do other guys and young ladies on the team. And it's odd because every once in a while you get somebody who goes, I just don't understand why it is that Matt or X management doesn't come out and have drinks with us or go do this. And the answer isn't because we're choosing not to. It's because the choice to do that versus doing other things, it's lower on the priority list than what we see that it is. And you have to cut something out. You can't be best friends with everybody. Now, meaningful relationships with team members doesn't have to mean that you're going out for drinks. Okay. So our team is very, very close. Okay. Transparency is a really big thing. To bring us back to metrics just for a second, we share almost everything with full-time team members, except for the individual salaries of the people that are on the team for full-timers. So if you're in with anybody, and it's not a secret, like I share most of it in seminars because it's just information. You can't really hurt me with it, right? You have to beat me in the field, which is hard to do in this region for us. They know everything. Mm-hmm. And I believe that transparency and being vulnerable, which was a big buzzword a couple of years ago in the motivational circuit, it is the key to building really, really great context and relationships with team members. So how do you do it? You just do it by being real, by being compassionate, by listening more than you talk. Making sure that you trust people as a manager, trying not to micromanage, try to manage. Managing is a real thing. Micromanaging, I'm doing my best. Okay. I was probably a worse micromanager years ago. I say it a lot, but I really do. Sometimes I'm just like, you guys handle that. I'm out of the way. It doesn't mean I don't care, but sometimes I'm indifferent because I want you to learn how to do it. Yes. That builds relationships. That's a really big deal. Doesn't mean we settle for second best though. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just to be clear, we're not complacent. What happens? We're not settling, but yeah. So we've been blessed with a really great team, and there's a bit of a revolving door. The turnover is a real thing in any business, but we just had our alignment meeting. We had 18 people at the table, and it was pretty awesome because at our last milestone, the executive team for our revenue milestones that we set for ourselves, we had a pretty major milestone this year, and the revenues that we set, the management team was almost identical at the core management team when we hit that last milestone than what it is right now. And it was a very, very large source of pride for the team.
Very nice.
Because the core management team hasn't changed much at all.
So how do you celebrate a victory like that? Because that's one thing that I've heard when they're talking about staff development and managing and such, that you celebrate victories like that. So.
Well, this year we intend to do in the first quarter a little bit of a celebration for our team. We just moved into a combined warehouse. We were operating out of 5 warehouses up until about 6 weeks ago. We just recently moved into a space 4 doors down from us. We got really, really fortunate to move into a large area that was able to. We were bringing 5 different brands under one roof for the production side of the business, even though sales is still separated and moved out. But we're going to bring everybody together. We're going to throw a party for both our frienders, our guests, our friends, etc. But we do monthly and quarterly events for our team members that are in these small pockets. So we might take sales over to lunch. We take this team to the movies, random movie Monday, we're out the door. Does it happen all the time? This last year, 2016 was a killer, John. 2016, we're still standing is the best way I can put it. We're celebrating that, but we are still standing. But besides what we decided to write off in checks to our team in Christmas and holiday bonuses, and again, back to metrics, we're not going to wrap up what those last final bonuses are for some few very key members of the team, and nobody should until our books are really closed for the year. And so we can really calculate what our accumulated depreciation is and really see what's on that bottom line for net. But how do we celebrate? We celebrate by rewarding the right team members and the team itself by saying thank you, face to face, shaking hands, hugs, handshakes, high fives, whatever it's going to be. We do events for our team. It's hard to describe how we do each one of them, but sales goes and does something. Production's going to have this little outing. We have our ELT team, which is our executive leadership team. We all do a little something now and then.
Cool.
So a few different ways.
Yeah, nice. Very good.
We're not going on a cruise or anything this year. I know a couple of my good friends that are DJs that they hit some major milestones. They're taking everybody on a cruise. Can't do it.
Yeah, that would be a big commitment though, to get the whole staff or most of the staff. Oh, we're closed for the week because we're all out on a boat.
It sounds exciting, but I've heard a couple of my team members say, since we spend like 48 weeks a year together, we got a chance. Can we just not come to work?
We love you, but not so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Matt, if people want to get in touch with you, ask questions, you mentioned that you do a little coaching and such. What's the best way for them to get in touch and to find out more about you?
Well, connecting with me via email is probably the best. Pretty good about responding in email for just under 24 hours or less. It's matt.radicelli@rthgroup.com. It's pretty simple. And I think that my information is also listed on the Mobile Beat Las Vegas. So it's mobilebeatlasvegas.com, which I understand you're looking at March 13th through 16th this year. Super excited about it. It's always a good show. So email's the best, but I'm pretty available. As far as coaching and mentoring goes, I love teaching. I really enjoy being the moderator and the lead and coach with our team members for our team and the different brands that we operate. But I've expanded. Every time I speak or have an engagement, I have at least a couple people ask me if I can do coaching, and usually it turns out into gaining somebody or working on a consulting basis. I really like doing it. Cool. I know the business like the back of my hand, and I like helping people. Yes,
and you have I've heard a lot of people who have said very, very good things about your business side of it that are closer to you in geographic distances and such. So, awesome. Good stuff. So, Matt, I'm going to let you get going here, and then Justin and I will be back here in just a couple of minutes. Gang, again, if you have any questions, you can pop out to the Mobile Beat Las Vegas website, and you'll see the schedule and such, and that will have the links where I think you can get a hold of Matt and ask any questions or take it from there. Matt, thank you for being on tonight, and I'll let you get back to your great show you guys are going to put together for tomorrow.
Awesome, John. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and we'll talk again soon.
That sounds great. Gang, we'll be back in a few minutes. Show number 2 with Justin Miller is up in just a couple.